there, my name's Gill Tiney. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learned an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Welcome to Being Human, Hidden Depths. My name is Gill Tiney, and I am the founder of Collaboration Global, the community that's based on love. So why would I not invite the most famous person to be known and connected to love, the founder of the Love Foundation, the delightful Harold Becker. Harold, thank you so much for being my guest today. Oh. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Pleasure and delight to be here and to be able to share.
We've been giggling already, haven't we? It's a really good start. I can't wait to find out where this is going to take us. Let's go back to a bit of the beginning of our relationship. And I want to give a little shout out now to Katie West, who I describe as delightfully bonkers. She is one of your sort of followers. How did you first meet up with Katie?
How do any of us first meet? It was just cosmic kismet. It was meant to be, and it has been a beautiful roller coaster ride, particularly with Katie, ever since you've described her correctly. But she, like so many, wonderful examples of what's possible on the planet right now.
Yes, yeah, so much so. So let's go back a little bit more into your history, Harold. What is okay? Where are you from? What do you do? This is when we went to America, that's what everyone was saying. Where are you from? What do you do? Yep. It's the catchphrase. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about you. Give us your background.
In the very beginning, there was light. Oh, too far back. Come a little bit further first. My background is I'm a first generation German. I'm the only one born in America in the entire family, which is kind of unique and interesting. Now, in hindsight, makes a lot more sense. But my father came to America, ended up joining the American Army. He went back to Germany, met my mother, had my sister, came to America and had me, went back to Germany. So my roots are actually in Germany, at least the first few years. Going forward, I've spent majority of my life has been here in America. And in that process of unfolding, going to school, getting my master's degree in business, and working full time, and being my last iteration was a banker in the 80s.
Well, I never would have guessed that. That's interesting.
So I ended up just starting to understand things about life, the universe, and everything. I always consider myself very, normal, plugged in, human as everybody would be. And then I started to just kind of have realizations that there had to be more. And the more I explored those notions, the more life opened up, and then almost as if there was a parallel life going on with me that was bigger.
Right.
And more or less, I would say now that about 1990, I stepped across into that path of the bigness. I started to really explore and immerse myself into who am I, what's life really all about, and there's got to be more, so let's find out what more is. And energetically, I think, to this particular conversation and all of my conversations about love, I didn't have a strong religious background. My parents left us very open to whatever we wanted to explore, which turned out to be really good. I did realize shortly after the early 1990s that I kind of wanted to know what were all the major religions, because they seemed to be such an influence on the planet. So I picked up a couple of books, one in particular, Houston Smith, and it was Religions of Man, and fairly thick tome, and I ended up reading the whole thing. It was a good overview of all the major religions, like 5 major religions, some offshoots. And in that, there was talk about the master teacher that really kind of usually was the impetus of the religion. Not always, but usually master teacher. And then the core message, and then how the religion developed and its impact. And after reading this entire book, I put the book down, and like every major religion is based in love, and the original message was love. And every master teacher that ever existed had a single message of love. And here me coming out of the banking world and the working world and the educated world, and I'm like, well, if it's all about love, why aren't we pursuing what does love mean? And that kind of really, that plus a few other factors really kind of set me into a new life trajectory where I really immersed myself into very practical, pragmatic, esoteric, mystical, spiritual, every angle of love. And that's continued for actually 30 plus years now. So that's kind of where the catalyst, the formation of the seed kind of began as to why I've done this for so long and why I enjoy doing the exploration of love for myself and for humanity.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because it's very similar to me in that I studied the various religions when I was at school. I was given an opportunity, and all my friends went, "Oh, I'm not going to do religion." And I went, "No, I'm curious. I'm interested." So I did it, and Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, any ism that was floating around, I checked it out. And to me, it was so obvious that you're telling the same story. It's exactly the same. There's the teacher, and it's all founded on love, and there are some basic rules, boundaries, limitations that you have to live within in order for everyone to be happy.
That being more the religion, not the original teaching. Just to make a little clarification.
Yes. And I think that was my big takeaways. I don't like religion very much. I like faith. I have faith. But I'm not, and of course, from my perspective, most religions have been made by men. So they didn't all fit. They were quite clunky. And when I first came to Christianity, women weren't allowed to be ordained. And I'm like, this is just wrong. Just why? And even the explanations I was given by people I respected, I'm like, no, it's wrong. If God has come and given a man this message that you should be leading your people, and he's come to a woman and given her the message, so how is the man to say no, that she can't do it? It just didn't make sense to me. So it's a fascinating, because of course most people go, well, what's the point of religion? Because that's the cause of all the wars in the world. We're getting on deeper subjects here. Let's go back to love.
Well, actually, to answer that, I mean, the appreciative side is that it has kept the message of love alive, even if it's been highly filtered or contained or made exclusive in certain ways. I mean, one of the religions that's fascinating to me is Hinduism, because it really doesn't have a singular messenger. And in its core root essences, Hinduism has a lot of the love message and the harmony message. Now, out of that, there are a lot of gods and there are a lot of aspects. I guess because I wasn't coming in with a strong filter initially, it allowed me to synthesize the essences of the messages in the religions. And I certainly had some strong reactions, and at times, can still have some reactions to religious interpretations. Mm. However, the core messages continue to flourish, if not constantly colored. And we are, even, in the last few decades, for example, there's a movement of interfaith. And that is kind of a different movement where interfaith groups are gathering, saying we are the beginning seeds of, let's sit down and look at our commonalities rather than our differences. I will say that a lot of this can be an experience. If we go big and over the millennia, it's human conditioning where we keep repeating ourselves. It's also human potential where we keep moving forward and progressing with ourselves. We're also kind of, we would say we've inculcated ourselves with the idea of separation and division, and reinforce that kind of under almost like a patriarchal kind of approach, a male-dominated approach. And yet we are still benefiting from it. And the appreciation aspect is that every pathway started in love, every pathway leads to love, and the exploration is still the individual's opportunity. And for me, because I was able to synthesize the essences, I was able to realize the commonalities, and in a way use that as a platform of understanding. And yet, because I'm not directly resonating with anyone, I'm able to come from yet an additional perspective that incorporates all of them and allows all of them to exist while not feeling that mine has to be fitting someone, or some one particular one. And as a result, and I'm sure we'll touch this later, but as a result, some of the things that I've been able to experience is literally going global with a lot of our work, and then finding people of every race, culture, nationality, perspective, gender, color, shape, size, and because we have been universal in our approach, I've been universal in my approach, it's been very easy and natural. And then also, I've been, shall we say, magnetic to all these different people who are coming from love, no matter where they're coming from. And they're appreciating our universal message of love. So, I think I've dropped away that initial tendency to want to be at odds with things, and now I'm much more aware of being in harmony with all that exists, and still allowing myself to have my own truth, I guess, is how it comes to.
Yeah,
that was loaded, wasn't it?
It was brilliant. No, it was brilliant, because it's the word came through eventually is the harmony, and I think we have been conditioned over millennia, look throughout history, and we have been divided and separated, and felt like we had to defend our space, defend our religion, defend our country, defend who we are as individuals. But the minute you take love, and with that, the trilogy really is forgiveness and gratitude, it's very hard to stay angry and upset with someone when you start from that basis. And if they also start from that basis, there is always a solution to be found. Always a solution to be found. And when you think like, he's right, I'm wrong, or I'm right, he's wrong, and there's a divide, there's this big... How are you going to cross the divide? How are you going to come together if you don't have that? Okay, let's start from love. Right, move the barrier, and then let's see. Because there is no right or wrong. Right. We've made it up.
And to your point in that explanation, I would interject at the moment that this all of what I've experienced hinges on it's all coming from me. What I have within, I give out. What I give out, I get back. It's a circular flow of life. So if I have anger within, I'm going to give anger out. I'm going to most likely receive anger back. If I have love within, I'm going to give love out, and I'm most likely going to receive love back. Now, that has been a practice of mine for many decades, and it has proven to expand more and more. The more I come from a true, genuine state of love, the more I tend to attract individuals and experiences that are loving. And then when I do find myself, for example, for one reason or another, involved in a perspective of, look, it is up to me, and this is part of my understanding and my continued desire, intention in life and practice in life. Okay, it's coming from me. It's not coming from them. The reaction is happening, albeit outside me, and it can feel very personal. It's up to me to choose which perspective do I wish to have. And I've learned over the years how to become more proactive with love and less reactive to everything else. If you go back in time, it's been for so long. I mean, you have to go back in our histories, and we're going back, thousands of years, pre-Roman times. I mean, we were kind of survivalist, and then we kind of started gathering notions and ideas, and we started interacting, we started moving about, we started interacting with each other, and eventually we kind of got to a level of consciousness where it's like, well, you have something I don't, I want what you have, I don't know how to get it, I'm going to take it, and then we got into this power and greed kind of scenario, and nothing we're experiencing on the planet right now is new. This is not new stuff. It's been going on as a humanity psychological approach, and it's, in essence, if you kind of look at it, we've actually been improving, even though the improvement doesn't seem to be great improvement. We have been evolving, and we are growing, and we are expanding, and I will say, dare say, the moment I think we're at a crossroads of really quantum expansion of awareness, because we are now connected. There's so many of us on the planet that have never been like this. Yeah. And we have this connected real-time aspect where we're coming into a level of realization of our common humanity.
Oh, massively.
And I'll
Massively.
leave you right there with that one.
Yes. Well, the thing is, God bless technology, as much as it might frustrate me at times. It is an enabler. Now, I read a brilliant book a few years ago by Linda Grattan called The Shift. And she looked at business 20 years ago. She looked at business as it was then about 5 years ago. And she looked into the future in 20 years' time. Obviously not considering potential pandemics or anything like that. But she said that we are heading towards an epidemic of loneliness because technology is enabling us to work from home on our own, independently. And it might be that you'll go a whole week and the only person you speak to is the person on the screen. And you won't physically get to touch anyone and hug someone and feel their love and their presence, because you'll be so isolated doing your own thing. And the picture she painted was tragic, but we've just experienced it through the pandemic. But on the other side of that, we've also experienced the good in the world at a massive scale. So you were just saying how, we think the world is a terrible place and all these, anger that's out there, and it's perpetuating anger, and anger does beget anger. But actually, I think our media that we have is giving us a false dichotomy of what actually is happening. Because in the UK, and I don't know if you guys did it over in the States, but every Thursday night at 8 o'clock in the evening, we were all standing on our doorsteps just giving a round of applause, bashing saucepans and making woo racket to say thank you to the NHS. And you'd see film and film and film and film and film, YouTube everywhere, of all of this happening. And it was, even now, just thinking about it, you get a little bit emotional, because so many people came together selflessly to help somebody else. They took risks, they turned up, doctors that were retired showed up, people that were student nurses turned up. They all just went to help the nation. And, around the world, you see it around the world. I mean, it got me with Italy, when people were at home, and they were one of the first countries to sort of shut down, singing on their balconies. It's like, and everyone in the street was singing together on their balconies. Humanity came together like, not in my lifetime, ever before. I mean, obviously World War II, that was an example of that, but people were bombing the daylights out of each other, and it was hate-filled, and it was, I want your stuff, in essence, and I want to do what I want to do. We don't want you to do that. That's not nice. We want you to stop. But this was like, we're all in this together. The common enemy wasn't each other. It was a disease that we can't touch and we can't get a handle on. And that's when love just flourished. It was like somebody had speckled magic dust all over the place. And I was like, please, God, let this feeling, this emotion, this coming together carry on. Because it was so powerful. It was palpable. You could taste it, touch it, feel it. Even though you were isolated, you knew that we're all in this together. It's fine. Together we're stronger. We'll get through this. And then as people start coming out of lockdown, it's kind of slowing. The politicians are whinging, the media is scandalising, this person did the wrong thing. It amazes me when people say, Boris did it all wrong, the Prime Minister. It's like, well, would you like his job? There's no right way to do it. Nobody knew the right way to do it. And yet we're all very, very happy to point a finger and blame. And it's like the love that had been there carrying us has just gone, okay, back to normal. And how do you view that? Is that me being cynical, or is that something that you've seen?
I would start from where you started this explanation. in the isolation, whether current or in the past, or whether technologically driven previously, or in any isolated villages. Again, this is not new stuff.
Yeah.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. We are social creatures. Yes. We are socially inclined, and over time, where we've done just really man's inhumanity to man is evident every step of the way. And most of our stories are angled to give us the conquering perspective and the righteous perspective and the whole winning version of whatever it is. And yet back of, one of the studies I did early on in the early 90s, I had lived in the Washington, D.C. area, and I loved certain aspects of the founding fathers of America and certain aspects of some of the brilliance that was seeded then. And it occurred to me fairly quickly, behind every man is a woman. And I just started to look into how many women were having an impact in doing things where it's just not necessarily recorded, or if it is recorded, it's not main focus. I won't even say mainstream is not main focus. So, obviously, the UK's, there have been numerous feminine leadership, and you have one now. So this isn't, we've been doing this in various ways for a very long time. The brilliance of the moment, to your point, is this is unusual in the sense that we are globally kind of taken offline and set aside, kind of in a reboot. As we have the technology, we know what it's like when you go from one operating system to another. There's a point of it doing something internally, and then voila, when the machine comes back on, it's now fancier and prettier and more efficient and what have you. Clearly, nobody envisioned this at this moment. I don't know of a single entity anywhere that thought that this would happen. And yet how it has happened and the way it's expressed itself has been a wonderful way for us to stop the momentum of the train that we've been on and not even necessarily get on the train again. And I will say that this is where I do feel that the reboot, we are getting on a different train. It may not be obvious. There's going to be some old momentums. However, just say, for example, here in suburbia in Orlando, Florida, typical subdivisions that we've lived in more recently, pretty much all the houses have garages. And for the most part, I can say, as a little side note, I'm privileged in the Orlando area. We are very multicultural, multinational area because of the tourism here. And so like our subdivision is a true melting pot of humanity from around the world, which has always been my favorite places to live, whether DC or San Francisco area or here. But typically speaking, in my observation, most people would come out of their garages in the morning, drive off to some destination, come back at night, drive into their garages and shut the door. They had lawn service, and that was it. And very rarely would I see anybody. And when this started to unfold here and we started having certain lockdowns here in our area, brilliant. Started seeing walking, they were home. Started seeing families walking, started walking myself again. And the others, how I got to notice them. And I started to notice people coming out and doing yard work. I mean, now they had time on their hands. They didn't have an agenda. They were taken out of that momentum. And they had to sit with themselves. And collectively on the planet, we all kind of had to sit with ourselves. We, in the kind of a funny extreme, we were all like, okay, you need to sit in the corner and think about what you've been doing.
I love that.
Cute way of looking at it. But it even grew to the point where I started to notice families coming outside and playing with their children. I have never seen that as a general rule, because again, to your point, technology and the way we've set up our schools and the way we've set up our systems, busy. And yet really, I mean, clearly when I was of a young age, I played outside all the time with the neighborhood kids. My parents didn't know where I was. They didn't care. If I came home by dark, great. If I didn't come home by dark, I should have told them why I wasn't coming home by dark. But that was just never an issue. I know that as we have projected this idea of greater and greater fear and given more and more examples of how fear plays itself out, materially, there's certainly always a benefit of being cautiously aware. At the same time, I think we had moved so far away from what's important. Now you've got people being at home, sequestered with their family, finding out that maybe little Johnny isn't the cute kid that I thought he was, and maybe little Sally is a little terror. At the same time, because I am observational of humanity's antics, as it were, I really would get such a warm fuzzy in my heart when I would see full families out in their front yards at 6 p.m., maybe sitting in chairs, watch the kids play or whatever. But it's like, this isn't something that had happened before. Well, you do that, as we often know psychologically, say if you do something for 30 days, it changes the habit. Well, this went on for 30, 60 days, and at some levels it's still going on. Habits have been changed, realizations are happening. People have been able to take their attention off of what they thought was so important and started to notice what might be actually right in their own backyard that's more important.
Literally.
Now, not all of it would necessarily work out in the most positive sense, because I'm sure that there were all kinds of issues where spouses were together where they were not happy, and this just exacerbated that.
Yeah.
But energetically, because I have been interacting with people around the world, and this is something that's shared around the world, I get to hear glimpses of that. And I get to observe just in my own backyard. And every backyard's a little bit different. My community is a little bit different than the next community. And yet this common universal sitting with ourselves is brilliant, because it is within ourselves. And this is kind of the next point I'd like to evolve into, is we're talking about the love. What begins with me, what I have within, I give out. What I give out, give back. Well, there's a crucial spoken and unspoken element to that. It's all about the love I have with me. It is all about the love of my self-acceptance of me. It's all about, and this is not narcissistic, not selfish kind of approach. We have to get in touch with ourselves, because we're the ones that come in this world alone. We leave this world alone, and it's us with our thoughts and feelings 24/7 for an entire lifetime, however long that may be. So we really need to be our own best friend.
Yeah.
And we have not been taught that. We have no relationship to what it's like to be okay with ourselves. And granted, there's traumas and dramas galore, and I'm not suggesting that we don't acknowledge that they exist and that they've existed, and lots of people have gone through lots of things. I had a reasonably normal, good childhood, and yet in high school I had suicidal tendencies. I felt bullied. I felt childish in every step of the way.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel I fit in. And this is one of the other hindsights of my own personal story. I now realize I really didn't come into this world having any ultimate interest in playing the world's game as it was. I see now that I was always just very different. And that's probably once I got to embrace that it was okay to have my own view and my own truth and my own understanding, my own exploration, because truth is nominal. I mean, it's always evolving for me. And because I've come from a reality of my parents and my generation, their generation, the previous generation, I really understand how inculcated. My parents were children in World War II in Germany, so they got to see the brunt of the nasty, very impressionable time period. Well, that still kind of has perpetuated itself. My being born in the early 60s gave me a different glimpse of life. And then my nephews who were born in, the 80s and early 90s, I've gotten a different perspective. Well, my godchild of close friends of ours and friends of, our board members who had children and stuff, brilliantly different children coming out, way different than I was at my age.
Yeah.
So energetically, I feel like I've woken up into this greater reality where I understand where I come from. I understand the belief systems and the trajectory of where all that was. I understand my personal time, space, frame, and because I've evolved and changed, I'm very receptive and can really see the magnificence that's coming through in children that are just being born, or maybe 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old. They're wired differently. And I understand them. I understand my parents. And it's a beautiful place to be, because I'm not trying to be the dutiful son, and I'm not trying to be the perfect person. And because I can sit back and really look at life more objectively and not bring so many filters in. And this is many years of expansion of my own consciousness, letting go, more years of loving myself, more years of being a participant and an observer of my life. Lots of elements are going into this. But I do come from where most of the podcast listeners in this particular episode are going to be coming from. Been there, done that. I came from this core, believe and react to everything that's going out in the world, to reversing that and coming in within myself and saying, who am I? And who am I as an expanding reality, creative being, magnificence? Well, because I have that within, when I see people in the world, I see their magnificence, I see their essence, I see their divinity and their humanness, and I acknowledge their experience right where they're at, and I see their potential to be even more of all that. And so I don't sit there in that normal reactive stage of you look this way and you fit this box, and it's like, because I see beyond it. So this really all does start within ourselves. If we don't have the forgiveness for self and the love for self and the acceptance for self, it is impossible to not do anything but react to the world around us.
Yeah. Oh, so succinctly put, Harold. It was part of what we do at Collaboration Global. The whole philosophy is, unless you can connect to yourself, how can you possibly connect to other people? So we do a lot of personal development work so people can understand what triggers you, what gets you angry, why do you get angry, what limiting beliefs do you have, do you love yourself, have you forgiven yourself, all the things that make up who you are. So when we have somebody present to our community, they don't present about their business, they present about who they are. So it's connect to me. So you get understanding around, well, when I was a kid, this happened to me, and that's why I believe in this. And when I was a teenager, something else happened, and I had this interaction, and because of that, this is how I view my life. And then I had an accident, and this. So all the little incidents in life, not I did this, I studied this, I got this qualification, I got promoted when I was this age. We don't care about the doing. It's who you are as a being. And if you haven't, as you say, connected to your inner self, how are you able to connect effectively with love, with someone else, in order to collaborate? So our philosophy is, when people are together in this space, imagine if there were 20 Harolds and you were to work together with that knowledge and that experience and that view and context of life, what could you achieve? It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? The potential is absolutely huge. And I remember walking down a road once with my friend's daughter, who was 8 years old at the time, and she looked up at me and she went, "Jill, you're very good with children, aren't you?" I said, "Oh, thank you very much." I said, "What makes you say that?" She said, "Well, you're really interested in what I say." I said, "Hun, I think I'm interested in what everybody says, because I'm fascinated by people." And then she started asking me questions about me. So it was really interesting that, it doesn't matter what age you are or where you come from. A human being in front of you is someone that has this wealth of experience and knowledge and love and connectedness. And if you can connect to your inner self, and then you kind of separate yourself from the emotion, and you respond rather than react, you can then live your life by choice rather than by accident.
And one of the reasons we connected already years ago with the collaboration, the word collaboration has been near and dear to my heart for many years. And you were really one that more formally put it out there in a public way. Take what we were just talking about with the idea of where we kind of come from, where humanity's been, and where we're going. It has been based on this competitiveness. You have something, I have something, we have to win, I have to win over you, you have, whatever. There's this strife of, but again, we're in the reactive stage. We're not whole and complete within. Collaboration is the other end of that stick that says we're all in it together. And we've had these discussions too. My perspective of collaboration is really, it is very unconditional. And in the sense that collaboration inspires people to do what they're inspired to do, and not because of any reward or any expectation or anything that comes back. Competition is very distinctly the opposite, where it's expecting to win or lose or kind of gain or whatever, And energetically, I think because I was trained in the business world, I worked full-time during the day, and I went to school full-time at night, going all the way through my master's. I could see the difference in theory and then the workplace, and I could really see that some of the best theories weren't showing up in the workplace, and some of the important things in the whole business world weren't showing up at all, which is our humanity. Like it was all really, especially being, and I will qualify, my perspective is as culturally as I've been able to go and understand global. I do acknowledge and recognize I'm necessarily American-centric and Western-centric in understanding, because that's where I play, the field I play in most of the time. In other words, This is the playground, and so it's, that's what kind of
it's the pond you swim in, isn't it?
Yes. But energetically, I knew And why I walked away from the whole business world, a 10-year education and work career, was because I wasn't feeling, I was doing everything right. And this is one I often share. I was doing everything right. I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
So I really had to decide what was happy. Well, I will even say 30 years later, it's a fascinating thing here on the planet. We are not taught to be happy. We are taught to suffer. And it has kind of been going on for a very long time.
Expectation, isn't it?
And
I'm writing all this down. This is great.
Cellular level, and nothing really reinforces happy. And if you are happy and somebody is miserable, the miserable person is not going to be very happy with you being happy because they're in misery and they want you to be miserable with them.
Yeah.
That's the kind of where media takes us, you know. But energetically, if you really think about it, I cannot be of any assistance for anyone else if I'm at their level. If I'm in suffering with them, then both are suffering. There is no solution. There's no empathy. There's no rising of the energy. Yeah. So clearly, you know, if I were to present a meal for somebody that was starving and they weren't willing to eat it, then they don't get any benefit from it. If I eat it, they're still not going to get any benefit. So there's no value in lowering our energy or vibrational to where people are. Now, we can appreciate where they are. It doesn't mean we have to go there with them. And in a lot of the energies that are out there in the world, anger begets anger, begins circle of life. If I choose not to, and I don't have reasons to be angry anymore because I've really forgiven and released experiences, I've seen them from a broader perspective, and that's always key. We have to see things bigger than they were at. I mean, I think even Einstein says you can't solve the problem at the level that it was created. So energetically, you know, the scale that people may or may not know about in this podcast, brilliant gentleman who did kinesiology, and he tested people, muscle tested people for a very long time over various levels of what he considered consciousness. And it goes down to the low 200s or 200 or below 200 and then above, and then 400 to 500 was a big shift, 499 to 500. 500 above really gets you to love. And he has a whole scale, and he would really be the lowest. Well, anger is higher than apathy. So an apathetic person that becomes angry, for example, is starting to move energy. So it's actually in a positive direction over apathy. So it's not that any of these things are good or bad. It's just that if you look at a scale of, you know, where we move into pride, where we move into intellect, where we move into wisdom and compassion, you know, on any one level scale, we are individually the full spectrum. I mean, clearly I can go to apathy and anger really quickly. It's how long do I stay there? But as a moving scale, where does the collective of my energy stay? Well, for the most part, I feel the sense of love for myself and for humanity. So for the most part, I'm genuinely and generally in more of a loving, joyful state. Whereas I certainly recognize all the places I've come from, and I also recognize as a result where people are coming from. So David Hawkins' scale has been a good tool to help me understand humanity's kind of the shift point was the 200 mark. And it was, we moved basically from competition to collaboration when we start moving from that lower energy to a higher energy.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a matter of the self-reflection is constant. The self-recognition and the self-correction is constant. And then over time, the self-critic has lessened.
Yes.
Because that, you know, if we want to know who we are, really, all we have to do is listen to our thoughts, something we have control over. We have the ability to listen to the types of thoughts we're having. And secondly, is just listen to ourselves when we're out talking. And it's like we're kind of a dead giveaway because what we're talking about is a good indicator of where we're at vibrationally, where we're at in consciousness, where we believe life to be. And because, again, and I really want to emphasize this essence that I understand how much fear and guilt and shame and embarrassment and worry and concern, you know, there's evidence of it continuously on the planet. And if you were to just see that, you would believe that's all there is. And here I am saying, and you are saying, wait a minute, there's also this bigger world that includes collaboration and love and compassion and kindness and generosity and appreciation and gratitude and creativity. And like, it seems like there's this big gap, but all of that's residing within us.
Yes.
We have the ability to take our own lives back and say, I'm going to choose to look at my life differently. And in doing so, I'm actually going to, what appears to be somewhat selfish is actually a selfless act, because the better I become as a human, and there's no better in a judgmental sense, the more expansive I become in my understanding is probably a better way of saying it, the more help I can be to others. Because if I'm more solution oriented, and I don't necessarily always know what the solution is, then I'm not going to believe them as strongly as the person that's in the problem believes it. Yeah. So I can affect, even by my stillness, by my silence, by my presence, I can affect the idea that there is a solution possible. And I share this years and years ago, kind of a precursor to all this was Leo Buscaglia. And I enjoyed listening to him because he was a message of love. And one of the things that really stood out, and maybe because it was the time period where I was more, having challenges with life, the universe, and everything, suicidal thoughts. I wouldn't say tendencies, but suicidal thoughts, because what's the point? He made, in his storytelling, he made an observation. He was a professor on a campus, and he said one of his students had committed suicide, and it just really bothered him because he thought, how could you get to such a singularity of focus to where there was no other option than that? And he said, and he rather, in his explanation, he makes a cute and rather simple reference. If you get to that point, go order a pizza. Do anything else. In other words, do anything else to get your attention off. Well, that's a big tool that I didn't really realize, is if you're focused on the problem, you cannot bring in solution. Do anything else. Go meditate, go breathe, go take a shower, go walk in nature, go watch TV, do anything else. Because in the other moments when we're not focused on the problem, the solution will come. Well, every problem has a solution. Solution is always there. It's opening up to it, and you have to move beyond the vibration. And this kind of comes back to Hawkins. You have to move beyond the vibration of anger to go somewhere higher. You have to move beyond the vibration. Be at peace that you're there, and you will automatically move beyond there. Back to you, Jill.
I just hammered. That was amazing. I so many examples and thoughts, and you put it into different perspective for me, because I love the stuff that Hawkins has done, and we'll focus more in the world now about good mental health, thank goodness, and people are aware that you can't just snap out of it if you're having a depression or you're just not feeling unwell, and a broken leg is visible and you get sympathy for it. If you're suffering from poor mental health, then nobody sees it and you suffer alone. That's the image that you kind of give them. And when you've got this scale, and maybe you're sitting down in grief and you want to be up in joy, you think it's this big one step that gets you to joy, but it isn't. It is this continual working on yourself, looking for solutions and going through the stages. Having been through the stages of bereavement many times, there's no shortcut. you kind of have to, but understanding who you are and what you're about is just half the battle. And I think you said earlier about unconditional love, being able to access that just for yourself, just to be love for yourself and to forgive yourself for those things. I remember I was on a course once, and probably like you, I've done loads and loads of courses about ourselves and trying to unpack what's going on in the brain and what's in the brain, but also what's in the heart. And this lady did this exercise. So you go to your happy place, which for me is on a beach with the sea lapping, cold British sea lapping at my feet. So you can feel the intensity of the cold, even though it's a sunny day. And you visualize this whole scenario and you look at it very, very closely and you see it. In the distance, there's a person coming towards you, a tiny little speck of a person. And they come closer and they come closer and you see it's the person that has caused the upset, whatever has been the altercation between you, whatever that has been, and they come towards you. And even if you've not actually said it to them, or even if they're dead now and you weren't able to say it, you can say to them, I forgive you. And you say, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And they walk away again. And you're okay. But then they come back. And you have to forgive them again. And you forgive them again. And you forgive them again. And they walk away again. And then they come back a third time. So it's a very deep visualization. And you forgive them. So all of a sudden, bit by bit, it's the layers of an onion. This kind of anger, this upset, this grief, this whole thing that's been holding on to you, that you've just wanted to slap them or do something, or why don't they understand me? Why don't they get me? Why don't they love me? You forgive them, and the layers of the onion just get peeled away. And then they walk away again, and then they come back again, and you're like, oh, flipping it, they're coming back again. You see it, and actually it's not them. It's you coming back to meet you. But it's not you as in the age you are. It's 4-year-old you. Your innocence, that child in you is still there, and you forgive you. And you go away again, and you come back, and you forgive you. Go away, and you come back, and you forgive you. And it's a simple exercise, but it takes about half an hour to go through it. And obviously not a dry eye in the house. It's a very powerful space to be in. But you have to forgive yourself for whatever's gone on in your life. And sometimes you don't even know it.
Yes. So
I spoke to a lady just yesterday who told me that she only found out through sort of regression that she had been raped as a 2-year-old. And it's been corroborated, and it wasn't just an imagination thing. It did actually happen to her. And that had been this thing that was inside of her, eating away at her all through her adult life. So to be able to love yourself and connect with yourself and forgive yourself is the first step to you finding love somewhere else and having it and attracting it and bringing it to you. And we've both done some of the work, and I look at my life and my world and what I attract to me. And I'm not saying, oh, look at me, I'm clever, I've attracted a lovely life, I've had a lovely time. But the things that I attract, as an example, another story is Christmas shopping, right? It's manic. You're going around places, it's so busy and it's so crowded, you don't really want to be there. And I was with my friend and we went shopping, we looked at stuff in one shop, and then we'll go to the next shop. No, go to the next shop. Oh, I found something I like. Where's my purse? Couldn't find it. She went into meltdown on my behalf. Oh my goodness, you got to cancel all your credit cards, quick. So hang on a minute, let me just think, where have I left it? Because, someone's stolen it, someone's taken it out of your bag. Maybe not. I had it at that shop, so I went back to that. No, I didn't have it at that shop, I had it at that shop. I said, it'll be fine, calm down, it'll be okay. I've just left it somewhere. Yes, but if you've left it somewhere, someone's taken it. So I went back to where I thought I might have left it and didn't see it. So I just went up to the cashier and said, I think I left my purse over there. Oh yeah, here you go. There it is. Everything totally intact, not a penny missing. That's the world I live in.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not happened to me once. It's happened to me many times, because I'm that stupid that I leave my purse through. No, it's not always my purse. But, things that have happened. We've left a suitcase on a train. I've left a birthday present in a comedy club on a Saturday night in central London. Still there the next day. It's because I feel like I'm good with me. I'm good with my life and everything that I want. So people will stop me when I have a flat tire. Can I help? Oh, that's really great. Thanks. Oh, I own a garage. Should I go? I'll take it to the garage and I'll get it fixed for you. Oh, wow. Thank you. This is normal for me. This is me living in abundance. This is me with my consciousness of loving everyone on first sight. You're a human being. I love you. You have my trust. Don't let me down. But they don't. And I do, don't get me wrong, this is life. I do get let down occasionally, very rarely. And then I meet friends and people that tell me another sob story, and you never guess what happened. And this happened again, and I can't believe it happened to me again. I can believe it's happened to you again, because you've not connected to yourself. You don't understand the things that you're kind of bringing into yourself.
What we have within, we give out. What we give out, we get back. And if we're coming from apathy, grief, anger, embarrassment, shame, we're going to see a lot more of that in the world. And there are so many things that are there's what we're doing in our individual world. And I find, particularly because we are, able to connect with everybody around the world. And then, newspapers, media has been around for quite a while, the news of other people. Well, because it is so in our world, there's a tendency to just, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Everything's going wrong, because the part that sells, the part that people buy into is the drama. And yet, because I've learned to live differently, I see a different perspective of the same thing. And I don't need to gaze upon that drama in order to have my own reality. And that's this parallel life, as you're saying, is like, there is a much, and it's probably best to say, it's a much bigger world than just a singular view in perspective. And the more we can let go and open up to more, the more there is. You know, that just becomes more and more expansive. I started watching a show on Cosmos, astronomy and stuff, a couple of years ago, and I'm like, where have I been? I mean, when I went to school, they taught there was no water anywhere in the universe. We were the only planet that had water, and only through water could you survive. And that's the story that I was told. Yeah. You know, and you know, clearly that's not true anymore. Science has caught up with it. Well, I happen to be here in Orlando. One of the other things we have, you know, the theme parks in our backyard, but we also have Cape Canaveral is literally an hour away, so I can stand outside and watch the rockets take off that, you know, are giving this, you know, these experiences. Well, we happened to finally go there a couple of years ago, and again, from my perspective, the way I interpreted what I was taught in junior high school, you know, more formative time period where I would have, you know, maybe paid closer attention to science and understood it better. You know, you're at NASA and they show this graph on the wall, and they said between all the planets that exist can fit between us and the moon. I'm like, that's not possible. No, I don't believe you. And I went home, and thinking NASA's got it up there. I'm like, I went home and I looked it up and said, well, yeah, you do actually have to turn them slightly on an axis if they're a little bit, you know, elliptical. But I'm like, blew my mind. And energetically, this is kind of what we're talking about: is explore yourself, look inside yourself, find what's interesting to you, find what motivates you, because there are attorneys that would have really been better carpenters. There are carpenters that would have been better veterinarians, and we have been so conditioned in so many ways. I will say, through all this, you hit on it. It is one of the other realizations that has come through. This is the moment to live. Yeah. Yesterday's a memory. Tomorrow is an imaginative potential. This really is the moment where we are physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually one. So in this moment where I recognize I have breath, where I recognize I'm in my body, I'm not in my head thinking about what happened yesterday. And again, I don't think either of us are suggesting, but we're not downplaying that trauma and drama happened. Yeah. The trick is, when you become aware of it, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to go through 27 years of therapy, or are you just going to let it go? Can it be that easy? And I think this is one of the things that I'm going to extend myself for a moment, but it's been a fascinating journey for me. There have been challenging moments. Yeah. And the more I've kind of come to this idea of simplicity, do I have to work this out over the next 20 years or next 20 lifetimes, or can I just let it go? And can it be that easy? Well, why would I carry it forward? Because if I'm using this moment, occupying it on something that happened in my past, I've lost this moment. If I'm looking and I'm aware of this moment, I'm looking to the future, and I'm worried about what might happen, I've lost this moment. Yeah. This is the moment, and it is not esoteric or mystical. This is really the moment where we're fully alive. And I think that kind of brings together all of the things that we've been talking about, that makes it, why have we expansion and understanding? It's because we've paid more attention to who we are in this moment. So if you and I have done it, I think that's what I love doing. If I could do this, my own pragmatic, practical, not following anybody or anything, it's really quite simple for everybody else.
Well, I love Eckhart Tolle, or Eckhart Tolle, I'm not sure how you say it, but The Power of Now. Yeah. It's so true. And I think the way we've been taught to consider information and knowledge is most sweeping statement. A lot of people live in the distinction of story, don't they? So everything is this kind of made up, well, I reckon he was thinking this, and I think she thought that. And it's like, well, you don't actually know, do you? The other day, somebody was being very cross and upset in themselves about how awful Meghan is to have taken Harry away from the royal family because of this and because of that. I said, but how do you know? Well, it's on the news. But how do they know? Who's this? Have you spoken to Meghan? No. Have you spoken to Harry? No. So you don't really know, do you? None of us know. We weren't in the room where it happened. We weren't part of that conversation. So you are getting upset. Look at you. You're hot, you're flushed, you're angry. Somebody else's life. And we only know a little bit of it, and it's not up to us. How dare we judge somebody else? you know, and you just see someone kind of, if that's what you're attracting, I mean, you're attracting illness, if nothing else. If you're living in that kind of upset space, it must have in your internal combustion engine of a body, it must have an impact on you that at a later date comes out in other ways. But we are, because as you say, you step away from the news. If you start watching the news, if you start reading the newspapers, if you start listening to the sensationalism, even the tone of a journalist is sensationalist, just the way they speak. Different times I've said to my husband, just take the words that person's just said and say it with a smile. It has a totally different connotation than them saying it in anger or in sort of this sensationalist way. And yet we take it as read, don't we? We take it as given because it's on the telly.
And we've done it for millennia. I mean, we've been in the pulpit mentality, and this is part of this quantum shift. What we're also suggesting here is individuals like you and I, and there are many of us around the world, we've kind of realized, I'm responsible for my thoughts, my feelings. I'm responsible for my reality. I'm responsible to, it's up to me to make self-correction. It's up to me. There's no hand of anything coming down to save us. In fact, it was never designed that. But we have everything within ourselves. We have all of the tools and reference points. We can have any and all guidance come to us just by our desire to, do something differently. And energetically, you make choices along the way, and you start to realize, like, in this physical body, science has shown us, I've got trillions of cells, and each of those cells is made up of trillions of atoms. That's remarkable. They're all talking to each other, and they're making my ability to voice air over vocal cords through a microphone that is broadcasting thousands of miles away to come into the headset that's going to be recorded in little dots. It's like life is so brilliant. It's so magnificent. And then I go out and look at the cosmos, and we've got billions of stars, not even planets and asteroids, billions of just stars in our own galaxy. We've got billions of galaxies that have been around for billions of years. All of a sudden, what's on the current headline, which is old news gossip anyway, really isn't nearly as important as we kind of think it is. And if we keep letting ourselves be shown life through other people's stories, we are missing our own. And I think that's kind of the essence of why love is so important. Self-love is so important. I mean, even unconditional love, I wrote a definition for it back in the early 90s when I wrote my first book. And it is, love has been misused and abused so many ways because we just have kind of caused it to be a throw-off. It just, I love my job, I love my spouse, I love my kids, I love my dog, I love, whatever. And that's great, and then there's the romantic physiological, and I love, the sexual act or whatever. That's great. But when you really get to its essence, what is love really? It's a way of being. Love is really an energetic way of being, whether it's the first puppy love or a lifelong relationship with a person you've loved, or friend, whatever. Love is really a way of being. And then in my world, I loved adding this word unconditional. Unconditional without condition, without condition, without limit. So I perceive, in the context of the now moment, my very practical, pragmatic definition for unconditional love isn't actually God, isn't dog. Because those are two characters that we are allowed to say they love unconditionally. Well, what if we can? Unconditional love is an unlimited way of being. If we can be as unlimited as possible in every now moment, the world is literally our oyster. Anything's possible. Imagination is flowing. We're not attached to yesterday, and we're not concerned about tomorrow. We are living and then present to bring more of this love wherever we are. And I cannot change the world thousands of miles away or 10 miles away. I can be a different vibration within the world, and therefore wherever I go, whatever I do, my vibration carries in the words I speak, what I write, what I share, the people I come across, the people I interact with. And I can be, that's all I really can be, is I can be a example of greater greatness. I wouldn't say potential, just more of myself. And then people can choose how they want to respond to that. So again, this is very simple. It takes conscious effort to become more consciously aware of self and the world around us. And, take that extra step. Forgiveness is great. You can tell people you forgive them all day long. If you don't feel it, you don't actually let it go, and you don't really forgive them, nothing's happened. Gratitude, beautiful in its own right. Appreciation almost kind of softens it, because appreciation kind of doesn't have that implication. I have to be grateful. Random acts of kindness never made any sense to me. Why would we do them randomly? And I reiterate back to, and I'm going to include you in this comment, individuals like us, we have been that life that a lot of people are living, and we still have moments within it, but we are living a wildly different life than many of those around us. And the only reason is because we took the externalization into internalization, and we are the ones that are projecting out into our world and therefore bringing back into our world. And we're acknowledging the beauty, and we're acknowledging the harmony. One of the things that we've, over the years of the activities with Internal Insights, my consulting, and then the Love Foundation, the nonprofit, people will come to us and say, well, gosh, you're not dealing with the shadow. You're not dealing with the reality. You're not dealing with all the trauma and drama that's on the planet. It's like, I am so aware of it. Pick up any newspaper, turn on any TV, 98% right there. You got all the information you could possibly want. Now with the internet, more than you could ever use.
Yeah.
And I'm choosing to focus on the 2% they're not at 1%. So I'm saying love is my all-consuming focus and understanding and intention and awareness. And with the love, as I've changed my perspectives, my relationships with people around me have changed dramatically. And therefore, they're not experiencing reaction from me the way they would have in the past, because I've evolved my way of looking at it. So I'm having an impact moment by moment by moment by moment by me choosing to be more present and aware. And in doing so, this is the foundation. This is why we're doing this, because we're realizing we are magnificent creator beings. Everybody's got the same talent. Not a person on the planet doesn't. No matter what their handicap or whatever they think they have, any kind of limitation they think they have, they're capable of magnificent creation. Even their presence is enough, because they're embodying trillions of cells, doing trillions of things, and they all have the same love within them if they choose to let that love out. We have all the examples possible on the planet. Kind of comes down to which one do you choose.
Yeah. And it's an ongoing choice, isn't it? It's not a done deal. You don't just go, oh yes, I get that now, that's how I'm going to live my life. It's ongoing. I don't know if you've read any Buckminster Fuller, but he has a theory around ephemeralization. And if you connect that, which is basically doing more with less. So he likens it to bridges and how bridges are built. And as initially they were done one way, and now they're done with practically just a suspension that holds them all together. But the ultimate ephemeralization is love, because we are all connected because of this energy on our planet, with the electrical impulses, the energy within us. When you stand next to somebody who you have that deep love with, there is an electrical current that is going to be, even if you hold your hands like that, you can kind of feel that energy within you. And it is the thing that connects all of us. So for our community, that is one of our core values, because if you start from a place of love, then everything else can follow, everything else can solve itself, the solution is waiting to be found, and it's just got to be plucked. But when you come from a place of anger or upset, all those other negatives, all down the other end of the scale, according to Hawkins, I keep saying Hawkins, then how are you going to get anywhere? Listen, Harold, we're almost out of time. I'd just like to, before we sort of finish off totally, you mentioned briefly the Love Foundation. Would you just like to share with everybody what your ambitions are with what you're doing in the Love Foundation? We started the Love Foundation in 2000 as a nonprofit here based in the United States. This is our 20th anniversary, hard to believe. And we have a simple mission, inspiring people to love unconditionally. And we've been sharing this for 20 years in education research. And then particularly one of the programs we launched in 2004 was the first year, was May 1st as Global Love Day, which is our way of saying celebrating our humanity each May 1st. Okay. And we've put that out 17 years now in a row, and we are not identifying how perfectly or what way you need to do it. We just say celebrate however you feel like. Celebrate yourself with love. Love begins with me.
whether you do it singularly, silently in meditation on the rooftop, on a mountaintop, or if you choose to gather, this year was a little different, if you choose to gather virtually, if you choose to gather globally, collectively, community, and it has just been an absolutely a marvel to interact with. We have over 700 proclamations now written, signed by governors, mayors, councils throughout the United States, Canada, even one from England. We have the Dalai Lama from last year writing a proclamation. And it's because it's a very universal, timeless message. And our goal is just to pick a day. I mean, for us, the Love Foundation is a nonprofit. Love is every day. But for humanity, we're like, let's pick a day. Let's just say for this day, it's a daytime out. We're just going to focus on love as a wave, 24 hours. It's just going to, however, we're not trying to get anybody to get anything out of it or do it in such a ritualized way. It's like whatever you're inspired to do. And Beautiful. We have a variety of other programs. We're all over social media. So energetically, it's just been our goal to create kind of a contextual, conscious reminder that love is always present within us and love is always possible. Because I do feel that has not been a very strong message out in the world. And it is ironic in a way because they come back full. The religions were created on a message of love, and we're just, making a more modern recognition that love is within us all. Let's go forward.
I think love has been hijacked by the people that write the greetings cards, and we kind of see it as something soft and fluffy and not very, but what you're doing and what you're demonstrating is, the realization of the power of love. And it should be in business, it should be in government, it should be visible everywhere, because it just, it's too exhausting to keep fighting all the time, and hate doesn't serve anyone. So,
and it's my hope that we're planting seeds. We realize that for example, proclamations, the United States is oftentimes considered a two-party. And I did do a quick, because we go out completely universal. We're politically blind in that sense. We just simply offer the invitation. We have to do it every year. So every year it's a different cast of players. And it's been roughly 50-50, which tells me something very significant. And it's a good way to kind of close this out, is that we're all looking for the same thing. We're all looking for love. Challenges, we've been looking for it outside of ourselves, missing the point that it's right within ourselves. So we are, as a humanity, no matter what political, cultural, national, whatever our filter is, we are all wanting to remember love. And what I realize, coming from a very basic connected background, connected as everyone that's listening, it's like I realized it was already inside me. And it's been a joy to explore how I can expand that love. Some days better than others. Absolutely agree. It is not always the easiest, and yet I love the journey of how can I overcome this? How can I make it bigger? How can I make the perspective grander? How can I be a true collaborator on the planet?
Well, that's just the perfect place to stop it. Thank you. Couldn't have timed it better myself. And for those of you listening to this, as opposed to watching it, because this will be on our YouTube channel as a video, but if you're listening to this, just know that I'm sitting here nodding most of the time because there's so much that Harold has said today. I'm like, yep, I'm like a little nodding dog going, I agree. So it's been a fascinating time. Thank you so much, Harold, for being our guest today.
Absolute pleasure.
Our very special guest. And I cannot wait for the day that I can fly over and see you and give you a hug and sit down and have dinner and prolong the conversation and take it further.
I think it's going to be a long weekend or a week long. I don't think it's going to be one evening.
Yes, absolutely. Or come over to the UK. We'll always have a space for you. But thank you. If people want to contact you, if people want to learn more from you, what's the easiest way for people to get in touch? thelovefoundation.com or internalinsights.com. A little bit of a theme, love and internal insights. I think we've been talking about it throughout this podcast. Or any of the social media, you can find us everywhere. So brilliant. Thank you. And of course, if you're interested in finding out more about Collaboration Global and how we utilize love within our organization and our community, we have a meeting, a Zoom meeting, an online meeting with members from around the world on the last Tuesday of the month, 3 till 5. You can find that on collaborationglobal.org on the website, and you can click on and book to come and see us and join us and find out what the community is up to. And obviously a little bit of networking goes on there, but mostly it's about how we can support each other in our business, in connecting to ourselves as well as to others, and just finding out what collaboration is truly about when it's done as an essence of being collaboration rather than doing collaboration. Thank you so much for joining us today, Harold, and thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We'll see you next time.